And so let's start off with the security audits. Now with the security audits, there's a few reasons why we do have the security audits that are available within, and there's a number of security audits that are available within SQL Server by default. And the reasons that we want to go out there and take a look at things is we have regulations that we need to follow. There are laws and governments in place that want to tell us how we can manage our data. There are corporate policies that say what people can and cannot use. And then also that responsibility as a DBA to prevent people from doing bad things. Curiosity may kill the cat, but it can also kill your career when somebody gets in there and looks at things that they really shouldn't be doing. And the most important is that everyone lies about what they're doing inside your database. Even unicorns. I mean, all they are doing is trying to get out there and do their job. And sometimes they don't have access to things for a reason, and so you need to check up to make sure that they're not trying to get into things that they're not supposed to be touching. When we're talking about security, there's a couple things that we need to look at. We need to look at both the users that are accessing the system and the data that they're accessing. Which queries is a specific user running, what is he or she taking a look at? And then from a user perspective is, when is the person logging in and how often are they logging in? What machine are they logging in from? Things like if you have a login that's tied to a specific application and it's supposed to be run on host 10.10.10.1, and every time it's being run recently, it's always coming in on .192. You might have some questions about who is actually using that login. And so there's things like that you need to go out there and validate to make sure that people aren't doing. Now, within SQL Server, there are 4 types of included audits that are available. There's common criteria compliance, there's C2 audit tracing, and these both tie back to sets of regulations that provide a certain level of assurance that activities and actions are being tracked within SQL Server. There's SQL Audit, which was released with SQL Server 2008, and then there's just extended events and some of the events that they have there. Now, the main focus on what we're going to be looking at is going to be extended events, but we're going to look a little bit at SQL Audit because SQL Audit is extended events under the covers. SQL Audit is just a cover that goes over extended events, and that's why I've titled this using extended events. And we're going to look at both of those a little bit and see what you can do with those in conjunction with your system. Now, the reason why we're not going to talk about common criteria in C2 is they are a bit difficult to manage. They collect a lot of data. You don't actually have any control on the information that they collect. It collects what it's supposed to collect based upon those audit levels. And some of them actually cause behavior changes in SQL Server. So one example is the way in which permissions are inherited between different security levels does change with these audits. And that kind of level of auditing isn't always useful when you're looking at just doing, say, login auditing, or if you want to find out when someone's, when you want to go through and find out every query that a person is running, or if you just want to find out every time anyone is running a query against a specific table. You don't want to jump the gun and use these because, well, they just bring back too much stuff for narrow requirements. Now, when it comes to SQL Audit allows for 2 levels. You can do things at the server instance level, and then you can do things at the database level. It captures a preset amount of data, and what I mean by that is that there's certain columns that it's always going to collect. You can't reduce the number of columns. It just collects this set of data. You can do both synchronous and asynchronous targets. You can go out to a file, you can go to a security log, you can go to the application log, you can go to all of those. The nice things about the security log and the application log is that you can use other tools then to monitor those event logs and pull in the events that you're tracing and or capturing through SQL Audit and then report on those. Now with SQL Server 2012, SQL Audit is available in both Standard and Enterprise Edition, which is a big change from 2008 because 2008 SQL Audit was just for Enterprise Edition. And so that argument that people used to have that, hey, you should make everything in SQL Audit available within just the basics of extended events, well, you don't need to really have that need anymore because SQL Audit can be used in both Standard and Enterprise Edition. And so if you're not using it today because of that Enterprise restriction that was part of 2008 and you're on 2012 right now, really take a look at it because, as I'm going to show, it provides some really good ways to go through and capture information. Now, whoops. Now, what the heck happened there? Let's jump back down to my slide. That was not supposed to happen. Now, when it comes to SQL Audit, there's a couple concerns that people are going to have, and that's that no control on the columns. And so if you're doing something that you just need a little bit of data and you need it right now, SQL Audit can sometimes give you too much. You do have some limited output formats, so maybe you need just some in-flight data. So you want to be able to watch it as it comes through. Maybe you just want to throw it up into memory and parse it from there. Or if you need to add in something else. There are a few ways that you can use events similar to SQL Audit within extended events, and that's going to be what we're going to talk about in the second half, that you can do some of the security audit stuff and watch what Bob's doing while Bob's doing it. But when it comes to SQL Audit, if you need to track permission changes, login creation, backups and restores, and all of that kind of activity, DBCC requests, SQL Audit is really the way to go. And you don't have that addition restriction that's going to get in your way. So, do you know SQL Audit?